Hi everybody. I did a Twitter X. Couldn't get in. Can get into the rooms. Can listen to everybody. I don't appear. Wasn't just that 51st state room. It was a lot. This happens to me all the time on Twitter punishments. I've gone through so many Twitter punishments. It's not even funny. Um, I've got them on Facebook too. But honestly, I've had way more Twitter punishments than I've ever had Facebook punishments. And they're always unreal ones too. But um, yeah, sorry I couldn't join. I could only listen, and I did. I took 2 pages of notes just on comments because I want to make sure people get answers as they really are. Big one, and I tagged Jonathan in this, so you can watch it after. I'm not going to type up all this stuff. It's too much. But I wanted to hit um, big things. Val for the first one. Pete Hoekstra is our ambassador, United States to Canada now. He will be taking over for the current incumbent under the Democrats. Confirmation processes, all of that. He's got to do it too, just like my friend Kelly Knight Craft had to, and she got grilled pretty hard. Pete, I don't think not so much. He should be able to transition pretty easy. But the ambassador to Canada still is a Democrat. And I believe that's Colin. I don't follow him because I'm not really big into the Canada USA ambassadors. Will they come and listen to Canadian people? No, it's not their definition, which brings me to President Donald J. Trump and actually all federal executive, all federal legislative branch, and absolutely all federal judicial branch in the United States of America. No, they can't address you. Sure, if you're in a case dealing with the judiciary, which I was, they are more than willing to help you. More so than I've ever experienced in Canada. I was blown away by that. Will they go political for you? The answer is no. Why is that at the judicial, legislative, and executive branch of the United States of America at both federal and state level? Because they're defined. Unlike Canada, these positions are specifically designed constitutionally in the United States, and they're all mandated. They all must follow their definitions to a T. Donald J. Trump cannot leave the confines of the United States of America to address Canadians or put himself in your view or start speaking to you as in stepping over Canada's sovereignty, which brings me to the next point. So Donald J. Trump can't do that for you. It's not his mandate. It's not his definition. He can't do it. It's not about want or what you'd like to see. Donald J. Trump can't do it. In fact, none of them can. Doesn't matter what level of government in branches, and it doesn't matter at federal or state level. They can't help you. This is international law the United States crafted with 4 other countries. I just want you all to understand that. They're never going to speak to you, for you, or help you in any way. They can't do it. Now, if your government goes lunatic and breaches international laws, whether you perceive what's happening right now fair or not to you, is not for the President of the United States to determine, no matter what his personal views are. He can't step over that line. Americans restrict him from that. Donald J. Trump is not the sovereignty of the United States of America. Americans are. And they are incepted with that through the state level, which is what commands the presidency of the United States of America, hence your electoral college. Donald J. Trump is actually the highest position you could say in the United States with the least amount of authority. And in fact, unlike Canadians who are used to top-down government, America is bottom-up government. Big difference. And they are defined, squarely mandated, and there's many checks and balances that can cost them their positions in government if they step over it. Many checks and balances. Not going to happen. Um, Benjamin Ebley, we were talking, I'm the one who brought him to the space. He's Wexit to USA. That's his account. I didn't know that before. He follows me. But we're really good friends. We talk all the time. We were talking before that live. I brought him there. So it was really good. He's the one who brought a personal favorite of mine from Canada, Toronto's Better Dwelling. These are a group of millennials I very much enjoy. I love their economics. I love where they've come. These are young Canadians, fresh-minded Canadians that I'm very proud of, for millennials especially too. They all remind me of my children, my son for sure. They do a great presentation, Val, on absolutely the crud of Canada, the corruption of Canada on the financial level. They nail it. I love the article. And it was actually Ben this morning said, "Hey, Dave, you seen this?" And I'm like, "Oh, geez, no, I missed it." And I really like this group. And I message them all the time when I can. They're kind of a little bit quiet these days. They don't post who of them wrote the article, but they're terrific. They're an incredible bunch. I love them very much, especially for young Canadians, especially for GTA Canadians. So they get into the money laundering, they get into the crown, the crud of it, why it's cheaper for them to continue on these international systems of corruption than to go with the legal narrative of the United States. As sad as that really is, all Canadians. Two was a fella goes by the handle Copenheimer. He talked about China, proxy war with the United States. Folks, yes, absolutely. Those are the two greatest GDPs in the world, and China's just overtaken USA in purchase power parity. This is absolutely a proxy war that Canada has fused itself with. Of our 15 trading partners, 9 of which are directly through communist China. Absolutely the Asian group. We've been doing this absolutely enshrined since before Justin Trudeau. In fact, it was Stephen Harper. So we can't let this slide that it's a left and right narrative. This is the crown autocracy. This is what's missed everywhere. Everywhere I experience listening to people, that's all I hear over and over. Left, right, and in the middle, blah, blah, blah. The problem is you're ignoring the up and the down. America is down here. We're way up here in autocracy. And it's funny when I do this because for Donald J. Trump and GOP, they're up to here with it for Canada. They're done. Their war on Canada because of Canada's war in America is happening. We're all living that reality. We're going to be experiencing it Tuesday. Their system of HST, which is not harmonized sales tax, the Canadians think that's some harmonized tariff schedule, HTS, sorry. And that's where you find everything. That's what they're starting with sanctions on Canada. They can't speak to Canadians. They're not going to go out of their mandate. They're going to stay within their mandate for America first, for their job for Americans, which to change Canada means sanctions. It's up to us, all of us, to educate all of the Canadians, all of the American people as we see errors I'm going to get into. And it's just sharing what the truth of the design of America is and what the mandates are that they're coming forward with. So that was Copenheimer. Yeah, and of course BRICS. The BRICS nations have moved into their sphere of influence. USA's attempting to build theirs. They're not messing around. They're going to push these things, and those in their sphere of North America on this continental stage, continental law, according to the United States and international law, they're going to enforce that. Whether we like it or not, there really isn't a decision other than the offer. Canada, the 51st state, and I'll get into more from the stay in order. So Ty, the American, goes into his perception of sovereignty, which is not the Canadian reality of sovereignty. And when we talk about negotiating with Congress and Enabling Act, it has to be the federal crown that initiates that. That's the office of Prime Minister. Premiers can't initiate that. What Jonathan was trying to articulate, and he did a pretty good job, but it's the Congress, not the Senate, although Senate will back up Congress's enabling law. But Congress, after an application by Prime Minister of Canada, the only legal path forward. Can provinces cede from Canada and apply for statehood? Not without prerequisites. Again, I'm sorry, everybody, for the umpteenth time. People got to get this into themselves. You are a constitutional monarchy. You, through the offices that you love, whether you like it or not, offices that are anti-American called Prime Minister, and all of your premiers, which means all 10 provinces and 3 territories, you have removed any concepts of ever becoming American through those titled offices. I'm going to get into Tuesday. What do I mean by that? It is illegal to build a militia to arm the people of Canada. There's a monopoly of force. I'm going to get into the definition of Prime Minister and Premiers. Your sworn birthed enemies, or when you immigrated to Canada, you swore that oath of allegiance to them, you gave away your personal sovereignty forevermore. You became a subject, not a citizen. Americans, Ty, and everybody, and it's not disrespect, it's called truth. There is no sovereignty for Canadian subjects or sub-subjects. When we talk about sovereignty in Canada, it belongs to 2 groups of Canadians. First class. This is those in the provincial crown, those in the federal crown. Only 20% of Canada's population. Everybody else is not sovereign, has no right at all to speak with any government officials in the United States on a negotiation of Canada. Your federal and state level governments understand this. They know the ugliness of the world. They know this of 75% of countries in the world, some of which conceivably are worse than Canada, but Canada's the next door neighbor. If Americans don't know, Canadians have no sovereignty. The Crown does. So unless you're a sworn, appointed, or elected provincial crown holder or a sworn and appointed federal crown holder, that will be the only negotiators when it comes to the United States of America at the federal and state level. And whatever they choose in civil societies, that's why I say it's the 20% of what's known in Canada as the first class, those with the Canadian sovereignty. Everyone else, if you're not crown provincial, crown federal, again, appointed or elected, you have no sovereignty, no authority to speak on anything Canada. And if you don't believe me, please call your lieutenant governor office of your province or territory. Tell them about all these ideas you have, and they'll say, how dare you? At least that's how my lieutenant governor of Alberta responded to me when I proposed much legislation returning sovereignty to at least the people of Alberta, returning constitutionalism for the first time since promised by 1867, Part 5, Section 58, written in stone right there that no premier wants to enact. When I brought that forward, I was shunned. I was told, how dare you? How dare you address this office, subject? Maybe not in those words, but in how dare you? And you have no authority to speak to me, and I won't speak to you. That was clearly articulated to me. Selma Lakhani's office. So Ty, you and Americans, you need to understand this. There is no American federal or state level governments in any branch of government coming to save the Canadian people. They have and ultimately will only deal with Canada's constituted sovereignty, just like many other nations in the world. America understands this very, very well. It's important for American citizens to understand the difference. We're not citizens, we're subjects. Catherine, you spoke about USA imposing a constitution. 100% correct. That federal USA constitution will be imposed over Canadians if we pursue the 51st state. The only authority we have, and it's equality of the person too. So in Canada, it's assigned equity of the person in class structure. America, you automatically go to equality of the person. That's why every American's equally the same. viewed and precious equally. That's why America goes to the sky's the limit to free 6 Venezuelan held captives. The American government went to the extremes just for 6. Can you imagine when Canadians minimize, oh, we're only responsible for 1% of opium deaths of Americans, 212 Americans just by Alberta's hand alone, in Alberta's Advantage immigration program, in Alberta's provincial crown, and your crown standing on a pulpit speaking to Donald J. Trump and all of America saying, it's no big deal, it's only 212 dead. Never mind the thousands of impacted families. It's minor. That's just per year. It's minor. Because in their head, Americans equate subjects too, right? They're not important people. They're not American politicians or American business interests or somebody special. They're lowly Americans. Well, the American system isn't enshrined that way. This is what Canadians have to understand, and how serious America takes these things and what they understand Canada to be. Catherine and Ty, you were going back and forth. What I want you to understand, the major difference here, and I articulated this in my session 2 with the United States and the countries that are in question in North America right now, and a few other actors, but this is high academia, high Republican, and then some high Democrats too. It's about the actors, and I got to articulate that. It's not so much the design Constitution of Canada, the design Constitution of America, it's how the actors are codified. It's how they're codified and designed. I mean the positions specifically themselves, the positions of the people of America, and then the lack thereof of the people of Canada. It's a very old, ugly colonial system, diseased and dirty, evil. At the core of evil, we can even get into slavery. Donald J. Trump just rolled that out 2 days ago. He gives these hints Canadians should jump on, but we have those horse blinders on. We're sitting there like this. We got the horse blinders on. We can't see outside of the birdcage crown. And that was important. Benjamin Ebley, I wish I could have spoke. I would have said, hey, Benjamin, bring up the birdcage. A lot was talked about. I just want to see something else here before I miss something. I'm going to get back to the birdcage. So yeah, for Ty and Catherine, it's a provincial or federal crown only. That's all there is. All there is on any idea of sovereignty in this country. Catherine, I believe, got into the mayor who was punished severely. I've seen a whole mayor and council removed completely for trying to fight world globalism and defying that crown power of the provinces threatening the federal. So you will never find a provincial crown, meaning even Danielle Smith, who will betray that. She will always go for her wealth, her power, and her crown, just like all the rest. They're instituted in this literally within weeks of being elected, if never incepted into it before. Everyone gets corrupted. I have yet to see a politician not be corrupted completely or even modestly, but completely is 99 percentile of them. You have to wait many, many decades if you're lucky, if one comes with even half a heart, but they get corrupted too. Yeah, and I say follow Ben Ebley, but very knowledgeable. He's a good friend of mine, and I certainly exchange with Ben every chance I get. People brought up, this was after Catherine and Ty and other comments. People talk about letters to Congress and the President, mass emailing, mass letters. It won't do any good. Again, why? Because their mandate isn't for America. Now, there are stages I learned to use, Speaker of House, Speaker of Senate, on key issues, specific issues to get answers. Now, those doors are open today. They've been long closed for me for a long time. And I've gone to those specific doors in specific rules of engagement USA is allowed to do where they can answer you, not step outside their mandate, but give you an answer. So I don't recommend letters to Congress or President because they won't answer you when it comes to stepping over that sovereignty line. sovereignty lines that they've respected for hundreds of years in the United States of America. Um, Number 7, oh, this is important. And this was, oh yeah, I wanted people to see Trudeau's post. It's too bad I didn't. I don't know who talked about this, and that's unfortunate. I guess I didn't. But I want people to understand Alberta knows much, much less than Quebecois knows. They know more than, in fact, all Anglos do about statehood. Legislatures out of Louisiana forming new states kept pluralism at the state level. This was me and Benjamin's talk about the birdcage, how Ben tries to articulate it, where Alberta's in a birdcage, Quebec's in a birdcage. The difference is that most Quebecois, whereas only a slight fraction, and I heard it today in the 51st State group on Twitter, where Albertans aren't recognizing the cage they're in. Oh, it's federal. No, you're in a provincial birdcage. You're in a provincial crown birdcage. Quebec knows this. The almost, not quite majority, but I would say 45 percentile of your average Quebecois understands the provincial birdcage and why they're trapped. And in fact, if you go on Justin Trudeau's post on his tariffs right now, this morning, and the things he's going to do, 18,000 loves and likes. Canadians are right back with Trudeau. We love you, Trudeau. We're going to smash Trump and the evil United States. Folks, you look at the comments there, there's about 2,000 some comments, a majority in French by Quebecois. They articulate how it's not the United States' fault, how you're being absolutely, not bigot, but how did the French say it? But a double speaker, which is absolutely an Anglo thing. The Red Cross, the double speak, and Americans understand that too. Quebecois understand what Americans know that they're born into, that betrayal, that double cross, double speak. And, right, and that is the idea that you're in a cage by the province too. Whereas most Anglos don't recognize the provincial cage of the crown, don't recognize it, don't want to believe it, and immortalize their premiers. That is not the same for Quebec. That's why Quebec's party system is much different than every other province and territory in Canada, besides maybe Nunavut for now. James was another guy. So he got into Confederation is broken. That's where I want to add to that it's broken in all 10 provinces and 3 territories as well. It's as bad in Quebec as it is in Alberta. So it doesn't matter, that's the birdcage. Quebec sees it, not in a full-on majority, but in a good enough, strong minority bordering on that majority. Whereas in Alberta, tiny, tiny minority. Can't break that British barrier, that Anglo ignorance to the crown. Birdcage trapped. I wanted to say this, and it's a really good... People always use the divorce analogy that somehow we're the spouse. That's wrong. Quebec understands that's wrong. And instead of doing the analogy that Confederation's broken and provinces need to divorce the spouse, that somehow we in the provinces are the other adult in the equation, wrong. Going back to sovereignty, the majority of us are children. Quebec knows this, at least in a good, strong minority pressing nearly to majority. Quebecois understand that we are not the parents. We are the children of these 2 crowns, provincial and federal, husband and wife. Federal is the father, provincial is the mother. And maybe that motherly love is why Anglos fall for it so badly. But you have to change your narrative to understand that the bulk of us are the children of a bad relationship. And unfortunately, both of them, father and mother, are no good. Yes, daddy was a drunk beating the hell out of you, but mommy was entertaining, for example, these men coming in, prostituting putting the children at risk, doing drugs, all of it. They were both bad parents. And it's important for the children who are broken because of broken parents to understand that you need to get away from both parents, that going with mommy is not going to save you because mommy's just as sick as daddy. Mommy's just as bad as daddy. She may not hit you as hard yet, but once daddy's out of the picture, mommy moves on. She's not going to change her lifestyle. She's not going to quit the drugs. And she will turn abusive on you too. She'll tell you everything you want to hear, but she'll bring that evil into your world. That evil is the crown, the drugs, the drinking, the hoovering, the rest of it. All those sins the crown will bring. Because it doesn't matter, mommy or daddy, provincial or federal, the evil and that cage that surrounds you will go with you. We have to dismember all of it. That's why Donald J. Trump and the GOP only give the 51st state. They're not ignorant to the crown. They know that is their number one source of problems here that has to be dismembered. The full-on inception and design of America that's always been America, folks. You need to understand this. Oh yeah, and then James and Val got into it on statehood and your healthcare, your choice. What people have to understand here about America that is broken, and Jonathan really did a good job on this, but healthcare in the United States at the federal public level, federal over all the states, Medicaid, Medicare specifically, there is a couple other. Of course, Medicare is the Obamacare, but there's Medicaid too. There's a whole inception since the Continental Army, how old this is. First constitution, first inception of an army that's all of America. They have military districts. They couldn't make medical districts. I don't know why. I still don't understand how they could have districts worked out so well that they could change up America, even in the 50 states, statewide and at the federal level. But when it came to healthcare, because the founding fathers hadn't rolled that out in some capacity, Americans couldn't move on from that. And that was right, Jonathan. But what I wanted people to understand, the two-tier health, I was very impressed with that, Val. And Jonathan, you were trying to articulate to James, understand, folks, that Canada's public, because it's regional and paid for from the provinces up and at a regional level, is far superior to than the federal down public system. It's highly centralized, highly problematic, just like communism and other socialisms. America needs to move on from that. America needs Canada to do that. And I want to be specific here, everybody, and this is for Ty and any Americans. We don't do it as a negotiation. I mean, Canada is going to get, Ty, you're right. Canada at the state level will ensure its health care. But it doesn't take Canadians in Canada, the 51st state, off the hook for Medicaid and Medicare at 2.5 times the cost of provincial health care now. Canada-wide. 2.5 times more expensive. To defeat that wrong socialism, to decentralize America, must be challenged in only one format I see as viable today. That is the Supreme Court of the United States, who will rule the federal system of health unconstitutional, no different than Roe versus Wade. Why? Because you all know this. You know it and you say it. And American states have designed it. And in multiple states, a private healthcare system, because that belongs to the power of the states. So Medicare and Medicaid are no different. They're very old. It started as a thing for the Army that progressed into seniors and then into specific lists of Americans. It's completely opposite of what's America. It costs Americans 2.5 times, plus all the bankruptcies of those who are not allowed to even be on it. Those who have to pay for private without any kind of Medicare and Medicaid to fall back on. And Canadians got to understand that. In American system, most of you don't qualify for Medicare or Medicaid and never will. If you're not working for government, not in the military, not a senior or a child from 0 to 14 or a pregnant woman, you don't qualify. That is a crap ton of Americans, but you're on the hook to pay for it. If you think that's a good system, it's wrong. And it's wrong to say that, oh no, we just ignore that. That's an expense you have to eat, an exceptional expense you have to eat. We can't have our own health care, but we're on the hook for that public health care, whether we like it or not, and we're on the hook for the public bankruptcies. Can't negotiate yourself out of that. You are responsible, like every American, once you're an American, to pay for that. Whether you use it or not, you're forced to pay for that. Can't opt out. It's imposed on you. To beat it, you can only go to the Supreme Court. It's not the only way, but it's the only effective way. For Canada the 51st to sue upon getting through the Enabling Act, the first thing we'd have to do to at least change America for the better and actually lead that. And I know the Trump administration would love that. They're never going to argue for that. They did bring it up and said, well, we're with Medicaid, Medicare for those who are on it. Trump won't even acknowledge it because he knows that it has to be done by Canada, the 51st state. We can bring that beauty to America. We can change America at the Supreme Court, just like Roe v. versus Wade. And you can't win, contrary to what the American politicians tell you. Yes, there's problems in all political circles of every country. But regardless of what American politicians tell you, the judiciary of the United States is not partisan, is not left and right. They are either two things. One, originalists, meaning they take text of the Constitution as it was written as legal today, as it was in day one and what it meant then, as it is today. Interpretive justices look at those texts, the same Constitution, say, that may have meant that at that time, but it's 2025. How does that mean for Americans now today? Right? Either way, originalist or interpretive, not left or right, just originalist or interpretive. This is deadly accurate, contrary to every American politician who tries to tell you different. I'm not saying every. The Republicans don't do that. They are constitutional law. They don't do that. Democrats do this, so I shouldn't do that. And I don't want to divide Americans here on this either. But I want that to be understood that in a challenge, so Bernie Sanders, Vermont, all that, they're going to come forward with those Republicans if we did do that. Canada would win in the Supreme Court with all 9 justices. I guarantee you, interpretive or originalist, 6 originalists, 4 or 3 interpretive. They're still, regardless, going to look at the law. What it meant then is what it meant today. Healthcare is not, because it's not written in the Constitution for the federal government. They're going to say, Canada 51st state wins. They are correct. As it was then for all the originalists, as it is today, it is not a power of the federal government. It must be returned to the state. We've already have precedent on that, and 51st state's right. They can even change the other broken public system. This system can replace, and in actuality, I'm probably going to send my healthcare presentation to SCOTUS. They probably won't answer. They might say, oh, who knows? But I'm going to send it to the 9 justices anyway. I doubt they will answer, but they will have it. I'm just going to make an address saying, this is for you to look at. It could be coming down the road with the 51st state. There are other ways to change the Constitution. Those amendment formulas are hard. 2 other ways. One is the 34-38 rule that's never been achieved. The other, which is all 50 states, that likely wouldn't happen because the states themselves don't understand it. Canada, the 51st would. The other rule is the majority House-Senate rule, and then the 50 governors themselves. That's not going to work either. It's very hard to achieve. I'm not saying it couldn't work. It's just not worth your time. You could be fighting that for decades and decades, where the Supreme Court, third way, is the way. And Canada could do that great thing. This was for Ty. It's an act of Congress statehood. Application from our Prime Minister. It's an enabling act of Congress and Congress alone. It's only Canada, the 51st state. Again, why? Because none of the provinces have any militias, none whatsoever. They're illegal in Canada, which is a mandatory prerequisite to even apply for statehood. Not one province or territory is legally even allowed to apply for statehood. Can't even apply. The other is a written codified constitution. Ty, you can't find a written codified constitution for any province or territory because they've never existed, they're not there, and they've never written one. No minimum militia, no constitution, no enabling act. Congress, thumbs down, goodbye. This is mandatory. Best you could ever be if you forced an independence, which you still need the allies of World War II, USA, Russia, China, UK, France, all to agree without vetoing you, just to leave Canada and be recognized as an independent territory or state or what have you, which I don't see Canadians achieving in any province or territory. Ben knows this too. 200 push-ups, you do them like a Marine, even though it's not possible. Canada knows this, that's how hard they made it. You did the 200 push-ups, and then they turn around and go, oh, no, oh, you did them? Oh, no, they have to be one-arm push-ups. Because there's all this about clarity in the Clarity Act that doesn't give specific numbers because it's left open to shoot it down. It's an open hole. Why? Because our Canadian judiciary, unlike USA, is not an independent judiciary. It's fused with the executive. What does that mean? King's Court. King's Privy Council, King's Court. Prime Minister's Privy Council, Prime Minister's appointed Supreme Court, and all superior courts of every province. This is not the same as the United States of America. Cameron, Cameron was talking about the rugged lands. He loves to go in Canada where you're truly free. You're not free, Cameron. 91% of Canada's crown land, you're allowed there for 21 days? You can't build a home there. You can't collect resources. You can't do anything. Now, I know ranchers have deals with the crown at different levels for their livestock to go graze, but even your livestock's open to take. There's some Canadians, some very few, who some have connections with that crown government because they are part of that 20% somewhere in the line, and they get to lease some of that. But the vast majorities for everybody else are off limits. Canadians or First Peoples. First Peoples can navigate them, hunt and all that, but they still can't own, build property, build some kind of life on those lands because of the crowns. And if they catch you, they'll rip apart everything you built. It's happened. It's happened throughout Canada's history. Anyone can look that up. You'll find the truth. You are not allowed on those lands. They're not yours. It belongs to the crown, who has the sovereignty and has most of the land of this country. You, the Canadians, live on 9%. Actually, half of that belongs to the crown too. You rent it from them. You're largely on leasehold, not freehold. America, largely freehold. Depending on the state, it's truly freehold. Some are not, and that's at the state level to codify. Catherine, I just want to let everybody know, and Catherine, there are no referendums to get you out of this. That's the biggest scam. This has always been a scam since the inception of the first Crown Charter, the Magna Carta. Referendums don't have to be honored by any provincial or federal crown. I'm going to say it again. Referendums don't have to be honored by any provincial or federal crown, and many times they're not. Supreme Courts will not enforce them unless they're told to, or give remedy under those unless they're told to, because they're fused again with who? Your executive crown, whoever you elected and they appointed. They determine because they have what? Your sovereignty. You gave it away. You born without it and it's given. Your ancestors gave it away, or you immigrated to Canada and swore an oath to that effect. I'm sorry. People got to get off of Canada as some kind of governmental solution here other than winning Prime Minister itself. There's very little we can ever do because, again, it's a pyramid scheme. And your only way out of this is to win Prime Minister or effectually force your Prime Minister to do any action, especially in 51st state. I did love that USA was the last bastion of freedom. Catherine said that. Quebec is right. A referendum won't do it. And as for the ICJ in Canada and these horrible human rights atrocities that are protected or aren't protected, and they change with the wind, with the crown, that's because we're ICJ. USA is the United Nations Security Council with international binding laws. Canada doesn't follow them. They rely on the veto of UK and the veto of France, who operate the same way. UK runs that same system. International Commission of Jurists, Ontario, nothing about that is binding law. All those NGOs from the broken UN, not bound into law, is what Canada follows because it comes from the League of Nations, because it comes from Britain. And as long as Canada follows Charlie Boy and that pay it forward to that UK crown, Canada gets to do whatever they want and they get protected. USA isn't playing anymore. They're not going to listen. And people say, well, we want USA to come trample over here. No, USA needs you, the people, to make the choice, because USA has a history. You can look at Philippines and other countries of trying to force freedom on people, and it turns out and backfires. USA will not waste American resources, American lives, or American energy on forcing anyone to do anything. It will be your choice, good or bad implications, or whatever they put forward to you, like sanctions, trade embargoes. They're not going to force you unless your government starts pulling out the guns and starts killing the people in a genocidal rate that's 3%. And you're not going through that, Canada. You're not. That's why USA will not go to military intervention. They run on international law. USA is one of the most honorable countries in the world. Believe that or not, people don't want to believe it, but look at the atrocities the country's committed, the things they did, and then all bets are off. But we're not there yet. Canada's a sneaky genocidal maniac where they always keep it under the line. Even for First Peoples, I think residential school genocide is the only one that we can get that 3% with, and that's still very hard, very hard. We're working at it. Those numbers are coming up, but it's very hard. And it's all children, and that is international law. You can't do that to women and children, especially children, and that costs them. What else did I have here? I did Ty, did Catherine. Oh yeah, so she gave the story of the pride flag, the mayor who was punished through the ICJ. That would never happen in the United States of America. It's illegal also in international law for what they did to the mayor. But again, we're under a crown system sponsored by UK and France, and they do it too. So until we break from that, we the people break from the Canadian crown, and USA is going to help us along as best they can. They've already started with sanctions. You know them as trade embargoes, as tariffs. But there's going to be more and more. But USA will not resort to military or force or coming in and getting in the way, stepping on that wrong sovereignty or forcing binding international law. They're only going to log it as all these cases, as they did with other genocidal maniacs and low-life human rights violators, Nazi Germany, Imperial Japan, South Africa during apartheid, and actually 81 other examples USA completed. The last one you may know of, that you should know as a Canadian, is not Somalia. Now I lost off my mind. Sudan and South Sudan, and the divide of the country in half. That was done by the United States. That was the last implementation of international law. That's where Canada could get if our Canadian government started killing Canadians at will. Then USA will step in, but they won't. Quebec understands something that Anglo-Canadians don't. Quebec understands that UNSC, United Nations Security Council, is the right path and right international human rights. I've tried to teach this in Alberta independence. It's a huge resistance among the Anglos, not so much with Quebec. So people who say Quebec will never be for statehood, you're wrong. I know for a fact that a major minority of Quebecois have understood this a long time, and they will be the largest movement towards statehood and pressing for it before any other province in Canada. While Alberta wants some kind of independence or some kind of authority here to have sovereignty, they're not quite there for statehood or don't really get it and don't really get international law. Whereas Quebec is many, many decades ahead of the Anglo population. So Alberta has work to do. Not that they don't have the will, they're just, unfortunately, back to that crown where they're not recognizing the evil of the provincial crown. They don't want to recognize it as two parents, where we the people aren't the parents. We're the children of two abusive parents. We're just recognizing one as worse than the other, but in our institutionalization, we can't recognize the provincial as just as evil as the federal, just in a different way. As for flag and anthems of Canada, this was for Arama, I believe is his name. That's up for your state to codify. I don't think Canada's anthem or flag would stay the same personally. I think the Canadian people going through constitutional conventions at the state level through USA's Enabling Act, that's for all of you to decide. And I don't think it would remain the same. I mean, it could. I don't know. I don't make those decisions for Canadians, but I believe that Canadians will make those decisions in constitutional conventions as mandated by the Congress of the United States if our Prime Minister applies. Dee's wrong about something too. Dee was in there and he keeps talking about this left-leaning, and it's not about left or right. Canadians are so blind to this. America, it's, yes, a left and right narrative of parties that they gravitate to. They're allowed to have any party they want. In fact, I think I could do better in politics in the United States than I do in Canada, especially building parties. I'm very good at it. I know I would probably have an easier time in the state level and absolutely at the federal level. Would it be effectual? Would I move mountains? No, not without money. But it doesn't mean you can't do it. The other thing is it's about up and down. In the United States, right from inception, Americans have the power of enforcement. It's why you have arms. It's why you have the Second Amendment based off British law that Canada was incepted through Prime Minister and Premiers to never have. So you could never be American. They wouldn't allow it. And whose offices make that happen? Prime Minister and Premier. That's going to be Tuesday. I'm going to prove that all to you. And it's D that actually, and other comments I'm seeing that, wow, Donald J. Trump and his administration, the GOP as well, they're right about this. I dismissed it on my last week's session, like, Jesus, you think they're going to listen to me if I present this? But more and more, as more and more of you comment and your belief structure, I actually think this might take off and this might change a lot of people, and I'm excited about that. So that's my video. I don't know, with Twitter, I don't fight Twitter because I use it differently than everybody else. I used to use it not as it is as X, but I used it as the best source of getting through to any politician anywhere in the world, or specialist or doctorate all over the world. It's the most amazing space. If X ended tomorrow or I got banned from X entirely, I would lose Russia. I'll put it to you that way. I would have no way of communicating with Vladimir Putin's number 3. And that's huge for me. And you know what? I'm blessed in this life. I don't know how I got through to these areas or got through to Americans, Russians, Chinese. I haven't for UK and France, but I don't care. In academia I have, but largely that's them responding to the United States. And COVID for me, as bad as that was beautiful for the idea of getting to these stages, getting an audience that I never would have ever had probably in my life either way. Once that door was opened, I used my mind and my skills as best as I could, and it worked the best for me. So that's my video, Jonathan. I can't type it all up. It's ideas and thoughts for that group. I don't know if they'll ever watch the video, but this is important. Maybe you'll articulate it better than me. Thank you. Bye now.